Here's something the movies never show you. The samurai who fails before the battle starts. Not in a duel, not in some dramatic last stand. He fails at dawn, in a wet courtyard, when an officer pinches his armor laces and finds them slack. What went wrong? And why does a 400-year-old maintenance manual have answers you can still use? Late Sengoku. Spear lines. Matchlocks. Mud everywhere. Discipline isn't a speech here. It's readiness you prove on command. You want discipline, but you hate training. Fine. The samurai system didn't care what you liked. It built discipline out of micro-maintenance under inspection. Subscribe if you want history that refuses to be sanitized. To understand his failure, go back to the night before. He isn't a famous swordsman. He's a low-ranking retainer with a stipend that expects results. A body in the line, gear that works, no excuses. His commander runs morning checks the way a foreman runs safety audits. Not, do you feel ready? But, show me. Taut cords, clean knots, dry kit, everything verifiable. Nothing left to self-report. If something fails, it's logged in memory even if no one writes it down. And our retainer hates training the way you hate training. He loves the story of training, loves talking about form, loves buying the idea of a future self who wakes up early and grinds. He even loves the guilt, because guilt feels like paying interest on a debt you never planned to settle. But he avoids the reps. He waits for motivation, tells himself he'll do a real session when the weather clears, when the ache fades, when the day feels clean. In the meantime, he does what people still do. He reorganizes instead of maintains. He prepares. He checks his sword, pulls it a finger's width from the scabbard, nods at the shine, slides it back. Good enough. He pats his armor cords the way you pat a roof during a storm. Probably fine. Eats, sleeps. Tells himself tomorrow will be serious. Tomorrow is always serious. Tomorrow is where discipline lives rent-free while today pays the bills. The system does not reward tomorrow, it audits today. And before you feel superior to this guy, when was the last time you did maintenance on your tools instead of just planning to? By late Sengoku, the romance of single combat is rotting in the mud. Master duelists get shot by peasants with matchlocks before they can even announce their names. Units win. Formations hold. A spear line does not care about your personal narrative. A matchlock volley does not pause because you are still working on discipline. There's a manual that survived this period, and it reads less like philosophy and more like a survival checklist. The Zōhyō Monogatari, not poetry, not a later moral code written by comfortable scholars. A gritty set of instructions for common soldiers and low samurai on how to survive a campaign. It talks about the boring things because the boring things kill you. Carry 3 to 5 pairs of waraji and tie them so you can swap them without stopping the column. A soldier without footwear becomes a liability who cannot keep pace and then becomes abandoned. Parboil and dry your rice into hoshi so you can eat it with just water or even dry. Discipline is not willpower here. Discipline is not going hungry because your rations rotted in the humidity. Keep the saya on your spear to shield the blade from dew. A rusted spearhead buckles on the thrust. Useless. You are holding a stick while the man across from you holds a weapon. That's the same principle Toyota would systematize 4 centuries later. Tiny improvements, repeated, checked, compounded until they become unbeatable. Now look at the material reality. Your armor isn't a single object. It's a system of plates held together by odoshi, silk or cotton cords threaded through lamellae in tight rows. In Japan's humidity, those cords act like sponges. Sweat, rain, river crossings, blood. Leave them damp and they swell, then slacken. They rot. They stink. They chafe skin raw and harbor lice in a world with limited medical options. When the cords loosen, the plates stop behaving like armor. They become dead weight that shifts at the worst moment. The officer's fingers at dawn aren't ceremonial. He's checking the bottleneck. One cord fails, a plate shifts. A gap opens at the armpit or the ribs. A spear point finds it. That's the stakes, not honor. Mechanical exposure. Here's where it gets interesting for anyone who thinks this is unique to Japan. A knight squire in 14th century France spent hours on leather straps and buckles. One corroded rivet lets a plate hang loose at the wrong angle. Geoffroy de Charny's Livre de Chevalerie hammers the same point. Check your gear like your life depends on it, because it does. Roman legionaries faced centurion inspections before dawn. Rust on your gladius meant punishment duty. A loose lorica segment meant the man behind you might take a blade meant for your ribs. Ottoman sipahis checked their horses' hooves and tack with the same maintenance rhythm. A loose girth strap in a cavalry charge means you are on the ground getting trampled while the battle moves on without you. Different continents, different centuries, same maintenance truth. Systems beat individual skill when individual skill cannot show up ready. Our retainer learns that truth the hard way. He fails the check. The officer does not shout, does not lecture. He just pulls the slack cord, watches the plate tilt, and lets the silence do the work. Every man in that courtyard sees it. They will remember. You can almost feel the retainer's stomach drop, that cold recognition that everyone knows now. That's the point, not cruelty. A survival lesson delivered in public so no one has to learn it the fatal way. So that night, he stops chasing big training sessions, stops bargaining with himself. He adopts the smallest loop he cannot argue with. One cord, then the next. Wipe, dry, tighten, knot, check. No heroics. He does it the way you would do an end-of-shift checklist in a warehouse. The job does not require inspiration. It requires completion. At first, it feels pointless. One cord does not make you a warrior. But that is the lie you have been sold, that discipline arrives as a mood, that training arrives as an event. In this system, discipline is a maintained state. You either keep it or you lose it through 1,000 tiny neglects. After a few mornings, he starts passing, not because he became a different man overnight, because he removed the place where drift hides. He did not train harder. He made neglect harder. Meanwhile, the rest of the unit benefits from his boring work. A spear line breaks at its weakest seam. One man's plates shift and the whole formation bleeds from that gap. Cavalry smells it. Infantry probes it. Pressure does not distribute evenly. It concentrates on whatever gives first. That's you if you skipped maintenance. But inspections do not stop at cords. The system audits bodies, gear, and obligations, and it does it with something colder than public shame. Paper. The ledger shows up after the inspection, not as metaphor, as actual paper in a man's hands. Late Sengoku armies do not move on spirit. They move on rice and head counts. Your stipend is not honor, it is a budget line. Kokyu measured your land. Your land determined your gunyaku, your military service obligation. For every measure of rice your fields produced, you owed specific bodies and specific equipment. So while the retainer tightens cords in the dark, scribes do their own maintenance in daylight. They count men, they count horses, they check whether a unit arrived with the weapons it promised. They do not ask if you meant well. They do not care if you are working on yourself. They care if your deliverables match your contract. Thomas Conlin's research in State of War shows that individual duels were rare. The vast majority of wounds came from projectiles and formation spears, not dramatic sword fights. Stephen Turnbull's Samurai Sourcebook details how daimyo states ran registries and enforced equipment requirements. If you showed up under-equipped or under-strength, you triggered penalties. Pay docked, land reassigned, pushed out of the line into irrelevance. That is slow death for a samurai. Termination without the paperwork protections. This is why discipline looks different when it is a job requirement. You can daydream about warrior spirit all you want, but if the auditors find rust, broken cords, missing kit, you get pushed out. Stripped of position, reassigned to irrelevance, while men who maintained their gear move up the roster. Our retainer understands the real enemy now. It is not laziness. It is untracked drift. The small neglect that does not hurt today, the damp cord you will fix later, the grime you will clean when you have time. All of it compounding until the morning you cannot hide it. So he starts treating readiness like compliance. Small checks become non-negotiable, not because he loves them, because he hates the cost of failing them. And here's the part nobody puts in the paintings. The officer doesn't only pinch laces, he wants to see steel. A blade isn't a symbol in the field, it's inventory. It lives or dies on maintenance. The Zōhyō Monogatari warns that touching the blade with bare hands causes the red sickness, rust. They didn't understand the chemistry of skin oils, but they understood results. In Japan's humidity, a single fingerprint blooms into a stain within days, so they developed tools. Uchiko, fine stone powder to absorb oils. Choji, clove oil to protect the surface. Wipe, powder, oil. Wipe again, store dry. That's the discipline, not the dramatic draw. The wipe afterward. Moisture trapped in a scabbard blooms rust where you won't see it until you need to draw and the blade sticks. Grit inside the saya scratches the polish, then holds damp against steel like a sponge. The retainer learns to do it every day because the system punishes surprises. He wipes the blade the way you close your laptop at the end of a shift. Not because it's sacred, because leaving it dirty overnight is how problems breed. Your blade? It's your laptop, your notes app, your half-finished project folder. And if you leave it wet in the scabbard every night, you already know why everything feels corroded by Monday. At the end of every work block, take 60 seconds. Clear one surface. Close one open loop. Write tomorrow's first action. Then stop. No motivation required. No heroic routine. Just anti-rust. Discipline isn't a mood you summon, it's corrosion control you perform before the damage spreads into something expensive. 60 seconds. That's all it takes to run your own maintenance check. It's not dramatic, but neither was surviving Sengoku campaigns. The men who lived weren't the most skilled, they were the most maintained. Next time, we will look at how samurai audits turned honor into paperwork, and why that bureaucratic ghost still haunts how we measure performance today. Subscribe for more history that shows how systems shaped warriors into something more complex than the legends admit.